Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to My First Business, the podcast. I'm your host, Naeem, and I'm a relatively new and sometimes clueless business owner. And I wanted to talk to other entrepreneurs to help guide me and inspire me and help me the best way to grow or understand the best way to grow my own business. So now I know you may be in the same boat. You might want to learn about what mistakes to avoid, how to overcome common challenges, and how to identify opportunities. So that's why I created the show for you. So if you're thinking of going out on your own or running a new business or an old one, I don't care, I'm not an ageist. I bring on guests from all sorts of industries and they're full of wisdom that you'll chew right up. And each episode is going to be like a conversation with a mentor that you never had. My guest today is Laura Manning. Laura is the founder of Brew Society, a locally based tea brand on a mission to get people drinking better quality tea. She moved to Dubai in 2018 and straight away felt that a good cup of tea was hard to come by. After spending months asking her mom to send tea to Dubai, she had a light bulb moment. Why not just start making my own? Fast forward to today, you can find their delicious teas everywhere, and she's also managed to complete her first round of funding this summer, which we'll be talking about. Before devoting herself full-time to Brew Society, Laura worked as a senior commercial manager in London. She graduated from Swansea University with a BSc in Business Studies, and as a part of her degree, she also studied in my homeland, Canada. Laura is also a wife and a mother to 3 children. She's proudly Welsh, growing up in South Wales before moving to London in 2011 and now here in Dubai.
Wow, what an
Welcome, Laura. Did you know all that about yourself?
God, that's amazing. Thank you.
No problem at all. I'm so glad to have you here. I think this is going to be a super, super interesting and fruitful conversation. No pun on the T's.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Awesome. There's so many places I want to go with you in this conversation, but I was looking for the perfect place to start. I want to talk to you about your time with Avon.
I was not expecting that question.
I know. You can never guess what's coming next.
Oh, wow. Gosh, that takes me back. Okay.
Well, I had a similar experience, but I want to hear and help you kind of jog your memory about that time. Can you paint a picture of where you were, how old you were, what was happening in your life at that point when Avon entered the picture?
God, I must have been around 12, 13, and I think I just bugged my mum for so long. You know, I had that entrepreneurial bug, I think, from the day I was born, the day I came out of the womb, and I just saw these adverts and people in my local town selling Avon. I was like, wow, this is awesome. You know, I can go out and work wherever hours I want, and I knew I could sell, to anyone. I'm such a kind of chatty person. So she gave in eventually, and she was like, right, okay, you can do this. But it was obviously very supervised, and I would just sell pretty much Avon to my aunties, my neighbors. Yeah.
For those that don't know how Avon works, like what was the actual role that you had to do to make your money?
Okay, so it's kind of like a commission-based sell. Avon is a cosmetics company. They have makeup and various other products now. It's a huge business, and you basically deliver catalogs on a monthly basis. Try and persuade people to try the products and to buy the products, collect the orders, place the orders, and everything in those days was done on paper too. So nothing was internet based. It's very manual. You'd send your orders back at the end of the month, and then the following month you'd get this big parcel of goods to your house, which you had to go and deliver and collect the cash for. No one paid by card either in those days. I would be there knocking my neighbors' doors, hounding my aunties, anyone who would give me the time of day. I presented them with an Avon catalogue and asked them for their order. Yeah. So gosh, it takes me back.
Well, if you tell kids these days they have to knock on doors to get sales.
Well, it's but it's kind of, you're completely in control of your own fate, right? And I think that's why I loved it. The more hours I put in, and when my mum saw how passionate I was about it, I was allowed to go a bit further, knock a few doors around the corner. But gosh, they were such different days then, as kids. We would always be running around the streets, and I think I knew everyone, the whole block, where we lived. I was just kind of, like a teenage salesperson trying to sell Avon to all of the neighborhoods.
It's almost like running a business within a business, right? Like they give you a part of that. And were they giving you any training, any sales training, or? how to go about your sales?
They would give you a little, but it was more like pamphlets and things then, because, they weren't we didn't have, kind of the internet where you could, tune into a conference call and be told how to sell. But they would send you kind of pamphlets on, if you buy these samples and you invest in this kind of product, which you can then showcase to your customers. So at a young age, I had to think, right, okay, I've sold this amount of product, I've made this much money. Now, how much am I going to reinvest into the business on buying lipstick samples and, bath foams, so people could smell and try them to try and increase my sales? So yeah, it kind of gives you that business mindset at a really young age.
And you were making those decisions by yourself at that time? How much to reinvest, how much to save?
Absolutely. Yeah. It was completely, my business. My mum would just, kind of oversee it, because, at those times everything was in her name, and she was helping me to kind of get it going. But no, I was very much in charge and very much had those reins, the decisions were down to me for sure.
I had a similar experience, but I don't have anything fun or positive to share about it. Because mine ended up being almost a Ponzi scheme, or felt like.
Right.
Because these things not done right can turn into a Ponzi scheme as well, right? Because we had this supplements company that was not in the stores and retail, but they were going door to door. And, if you buy into the package, your goal is to get more people under you. And I was 12, 13, so I didn't have like a massive network of people that were looking to buy supplements. I knew other 12-year-olds that wanted to buy Pepsi and chips with their money, but not supplements. So I lost a bit of money.
Oh dear.
Never told my parents that. If you're watching this, mom and dad, sorry, that was your money. didn't learn too much from that either. I did learn what not to do.
Well, that's good. That's a learning. Take that away. Take and hold on to that.
You mentioned your mom in there a little bit, and I do know that your mom was a single mom as well, right?
She was,
so I wanted to just get into that mindset of being raised as by a single mom as well, on how that has potentially, and this is probably in hindsight that you can connect the dots, but what could be some of the experiences that you think have prepared you now that you're doing business on your own? What can you find, or which dots do you think are connecting for you now from the way you were brought up?
Yeah. So my mum and I are very close. My mum is my best friend, and growing up, she was definitely a huge role model for me. She's such a strong character, and she has such a strong work ethic. But it's not just my mum. I grew up in quite a female strong family, if you like. My mum was one of 6, and that's 5 girls and 1 boy. So there was a lot of women around, kind of, influencing me as I grew up. And my gran in particular as well was kind of the matriarch of our family, I like to call her. No one messed with her. She, ruled everyone and kind of pulled us all together. So I really had that strong woman influence in my life. And, my mum has really taught me from such a young age that nothing's going to be handed to me. You have to get out there and you have to work for what you want. Don't take no for an answer. You keep pushing, and to work as hard as you possibly can. And I think today that is still deep in my core. I don't shy away from work. Anything we do now in our business, I roll up my sleeves. I'm the first one to do it. I kind of, I have that deep inside me, that really strong work ethic, I should say. And, just not giving up. Just, you just have to kind of keep going. And if you don't have the answer right this second, it will come to you, and you just have to, keep positive and keep going.
I really like the way you talk about this, or you just mentioned that too, because we all kind of develop stories about our mindset based on the circumstances we've been provided by the universe or God or whatever it might be. And I was kind of a victim. I've started to really change that around after hearing stories like this, right? Like I could always complain about my childhood or what my parents did or what they didn't do, and keep that story going. It's like, oh, nothing's going to come out of it because I didn't have X, I didn't have Y.
Yeah.
But I like the phrasing of like, okay, yes, it was tough. Yes, it's not the best available option, but look at the opportunities that provided.
Yeah, completely.
Look at what your mom had to do and what can you learn from that. And that's kind of a shift that a lot of entrepreneurs can't get over.
Yeah.
And this show is, some of the audience are entrepreneurs, and that is such an important thing to understand, that you can take any sort of experience and put your own spin on it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, it's really important, these life lessons. And, you know, we growing up, you know, we didn't have a huge amount of money. So you do have to be creative. And when you know there's not someone who's going to almost like write a check and be able to fix everything for you, you become very good at fixing and solving problems and being creative in how to solve those problems. And it's a great lesson in life, you know, and one I really, really hope I pass on to my children, because growing up in Dubai, their life is very, very different to how my life growing up was.
Absolutely.
And that's something I really battle with quite a lot now, making sure, you know, because things were tougher growing up for me, that I don't spoil them too much and then they don't learn the same lessons. So yeah, that's definitely a challenge which I'm still trying to kind of get good balance.
I can give you a bit of insight into that, because it's so much fun thinking about that. So you're raising your kids in a place where you didn't grow up. My parents did the same.
Yeah.
So I, for now, represent your children. I grew up in Abu Dhabi, seeing a comfort level that, you know, my parents hadn't seen.
Yeah.
And at the same time, doing much more than they were doing when they were kids. Yeah. But the other part of it, which I was talking about changing the mindset on, is that everyone in Dubai at that time was already a son of a businessman or a daughter of a businessman. So the kids I went to school with were doing even much better than I was doing.
Right.
Right. So there's always a look back at where you came from, like, okay, that's so much better. But then Dubai kind of traps you, because everyone around you is already done it and been there, and they're handing off their businesses to their kids. As soon as they graduate, they don't have to work for it or apply for a position, and they get in right there. So when I was on that bridge of entrepreneurship, my family was not open to me doing business, because it's not something that we do. That's what they would say. No, this is not us. This is for the other people that have already done it. But, you know, my argument was, at some point somebody started it, right?
Yeah.
If it wasn't him, it was his grandfather. If his grandfather's grandfather, somebody had to take the leap. So I want to talk to you next about that bridge of entrepreneurship, right? Okay. Going full time into Brew Society. There's enough media out there of why you did. I wanted to ask you about what made you almost not go into it. So what were your considerations when you do your pros and cons list? What was on the cons list? What were you fearing the most? What was the case for not going ahead? What was the anti list of not doing it? What was potentially going to stop you?
Gosh, not doing it. There is quite a long list, actually. One, we only moved to Dubai in 2018, so I was in complete unknown territory. And even doing the research about what free zone license at the time I should get, you know, I couldn't get definitive answers about that. And you know, that was, you know, a big red flag. You know, am I going to get into trouble? Am I going to get the wrong business set up? How will I know I have the right business set up? So that was definitely on the kind of cons list. I was also on maternity leave at the time when we decided to move here. So I was, you know, I had my salary and I, you know, that's really difficult to kind of turn away and just start on your own when you're used to that 25th of every month getting paid. So, you know, kind of having that security and that certainty was definitely, you know, on that list, because when we moved here, it was really about kind of, you know, one, getting this experience for our family, but two, saving more money so that we could send it home. We were only meant to be here for 3 years, and now it's 4 years. We're still here. So it was really around that kind of security. And was I doing the right thing? Would I get into any trouble? Because I wasn't sure if, you know, I had all the correct answers, because everything was so new, you know, everything here. I was on a very steep learning curve.
You know, I heard a quote from, I can't remember who said this. I think it was Naeem Taleb, this author that I read quite a bit. And he said, what are the two most addictive drugs in society? He said, one is heroin. Number two is a salary. Yeah. And it's hard to wean yourself off that, right? Like after working for so long.
It is. And when you get into, you know, that routine, and you have children particularly, and you want to think of your pension, and you want to think of job security for your children's future, you have to be really sure you're making the right decision before you take that leap. And going into my own business is something I wanted to do for so long, and it took me till I was what was I at that time, 38 before I took the leap. So I thought about it a long time before doing it.
Yeah,
for sure.
I'm sure that there must have been a lot of napkins and spreadsheets lying around dormant that you haven't touched for a while. Can you talk about some of the business ideas that you almost started? Or
yeah, sure. When I was in the UK, when I was working for Tata Steel, actually, and before I had kids, funnily enough, I did this whole business plan for opening a chain of nurseries that was super high tech, for parents, because I always thought about how you would worry about leaving your offspring, for the day with other people. So I'm not quite sure it would work, but there were cameras. You could zoom in, every day and check what your kids were playing with. I don't know if it would really work in theory, but it just made, I wanted a nursery that would make mums, particularly who went off to work, feel like they could tap into their kids and check on them and make sure they were safe and they were happy and being stimulated at any point of the day. So I did this whole business plan, and I still have it. It's probably gathering dust somewhere in my office, but that was the first one I wrote. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. You mentioned business plan in there. I want to discuss that for just a little bit there. So everyone I've talked to that's come here before, so we all kind of went to business school or didn't go to business school. It doesn't really matter. The theme doesn't matter. We're very shy of doing business plans.
Okay.
You're actually the first person that actually looks at it that way. When you do come up with a business plan, what does it look like? What are the inputs that go into it?
It's like War and Peace in one document. It's huge and it's everything. Or it's like this memory dump, brain dump that just comes down. I think for me, I have to capture it all. And it's almost like a process that I have to go through to justify it to myself. So it's, what is the business? Why am I doing it? Who am I targeting? What's the market like? What's the growth? It's just almost like a process, a checklist that I go through. I did it for Brew Society. I've revised it multiple times for Brew Society. But it's just that checking in on the higher picture to see kind of how it's going, how you want to maybe pivot. But I don't think there's a right or a wrong kind of way to do a business plan. It has to serve a purpose and has to be useful to you. I don't believe in writing a business plan just to tick a box, I believe in writing a business plan so you can sanity check your ideas and you can convince yourself it's for you, So if you just fudge it together and don't put much effort into it, you're only tricking yourself, right? So the business plan is really about putting everything down on a piece of paper and justifying to yourself why you're doing this, and then eventually to your business partners and investors in the future. But I do believe any idea you have, you should research it and you should put it down on paper, because if you can't put it down on paper, how are you able to explain it to anybody else? Because it just becomes chaos, and it needs that structure to it.
Yeah, ideas are a dime a dozen, right? Like it's almost like brain farts. You have them all the time.
Yeah.
But if you can't, that's really interesting. The way you talk about it, it's almost like a meditation for you, right? It's like meditating on the idea and letting it develop. And I've also heard from previous guests, and I'm trying to get better at this, right? I've never written longer than a 90-day business plan.
Okay.
When I jumped into it, it was more of a conversation on the couch that led to me entering business, which I'm learning is not the smartest way to do things. But from here on forth, I had a couple of ex-bosses on this podcast too. So both of them are business owners. The way they like to do it is they come up with decks. Right. So they're like, if I were to sell this business to somebody, like it's already running, what would they like to see on the deck? And I thought that was really interesting. And I want to talk about research for just a second too. How does that look like for you? Are you calling people around? Are you doing this on the internet? So if you're going into a new territory of business line or different products, what does research look like to you? Where do you get data from?
So I think it has to be a mixture of places. Obviously, an element of desk research, so you can understand who are your competitors, what are the pricing levels, how the product's being positioned. All of that can really be done, just desktop. But I think if you really want to make an impact and be quite customer centric, which is what we try and do with Brew Society, you have to talk to people. So you have to make yourself vulnerable, get out there, do a survey on a street corner, do a marketplace. We did that with Brew Society right at the start. We took part in Ripe, And, you know, we did the right market, a police academy, almost to see, do you like it? And you can tell us honestly, you know, because otherwise we're going to invest a lot of money going into this business and no one likes it. And those are my most valuable days, looking people in the whites of their eyes, letting them taste it and getting that raw feedback, what they like, what they don't like, what they think is missing in the market here in the category. And just seeing, you know, what gaps you could fill and just talking to people about your ideas. And, you know, I think when you're having that one-on-one interaction with people, you just get their raw opinions, you know, and you can't hide those facial expressions. We've had people who are avid coffee drinkers come and they're like, oh, and we're like, you like coffee, right? So it's kind of seeing how people react to what you're doing. I think all that adds up. So you need to do the desk side of it, and you need to get out there and talk to people. That
customer side of thing, that can be a little tricky, right? So we did this experiment about 5 years ago. My wife, Alina, she had the idea, and she's the ideas girl. I'm the execution guy.
Okay.
She's a 0 to 1. Like, I'll get started on something.
Yeah.
I never have unique ideas. She always does. But she just wants to build something fast, get going. And then I come from 1 to N kind of phase. So she had this idea a few years ago where she wanted to sell used clothing, wedding clothing. So in our culture, wedding outfits are super expensive for even the people that are attending, and they're never worn twice, ever. They're just worn for one time. Super waste. And they're always lying in a closet somewhere, or in the basement, or in a travel suitcase that never gets touched and is collecting dust. So we thought, what about, let's just take all of these inventory, buy them for $5 each and sell it for $60. So our research was messaging other girls, Alina's friends, on Facebook, like, hey, if I do this, would you be interested in buying? Everyone said yes. The day we opened shop, and luckily we opened shop in our apartment, we got these racks from Walmart, and we had the hangers, the nice price tags, had some incense going, some music going. Nobody came.
I think that's hard, isn't it? When you're asking your friends and stuff, I think they always want to be your biggest champions, don't they? And they always want to champion you on. And, you know, if your friends are like my friends, I could say I'm going to, you know, set up some random company. They'd be like, yeah, that's great. But, you know, you have to, that's why I say something like right market, when no one knows, no one's loyal to me, no one knows who the hell I am. And basically they just come and I ask them questions and they have no loyalty to me. So if they like it, they're going to tell me. And if they don't, you know, they will tell you they don't like it. And I was inspired to do that by a company in the UK. Well, they're everywhere now, it's a global brand, but Innocent Smoothies. I read their book and they talked about how they went to a festival in the UK when they decided to start Innocent, and they had 2 bins. Should we give up our day job and, you know, open Innocent? Yes, no. So they would give people the smoothies and accumulate the cups in these 2 bins. Smart. You know, but these were random people. They didn't know who these guys were, right? And it's really raw, honest feedback. Obviously, the yes bin was just overflowing, and the no bin had nothing in it. So they all 3 of them give up their day job, and off they went to start out Innocent. And look now, it's a global brand owned by Coca-Cola. And what a great story. And I think they needed, you know, after doing their business plan, they needed that evidence to say, yes, let's quit our day job and do this. And that was how they got it. So we took some inspiration from that. We didn't have the bins at Ripe, but we were there to talk to every single person, give them free samples to try and really understand, you know, do they like this product? Are we onto something here?
Yeah. I think the story that I get a lot also is, let capitalism decide if you should do business, or people vote with their dollars or their money, really. And you have to put something out in the world, because we're talking about ideas and putting business plans together. But tell me if this is right. Like, the idea doesn't matter unless it interacts with the real world, right? In some way, shape or form. For it to form and develop or reduce or increase in its capacity, it has to interact with the real world in some way, shape or form.
There needs to be a need for it. People need to buy into it. You know, people need to, it's almost like you have to get started on a small scale for people. It's tangible enough for people to touch it, see it, feel it, and see if they have a need for it. Because when you have these ideas, unless you test it, how will you ever know? You know, it's never going to come off a piece of paper. So I really believe, and I think any business that I ever start, I will always do this testing, where there's an element of desk, but there's an element of testing your theories, your business.
And how easy it is to decide the amount of money. And we don't have to get into a number, but like, how easy it is for you to come up with like, okay, I'm comfortable losing X amount of dirhams or dollars over this kind of pilot test to hear from the market?
Well, you need to keep it as low as possible. You know, it shouldn't have to be tens of thousands of dirhams, for example, to do a test. You know, you need some product, so keep your costs way down. Speak to suppliers, so, you know, and explain to them you're doing a test, because it's in their interest that the test works too, so that you can get your packaging, everything at, you know, reasonable price. But, you know, do everything yourself at that time. You know, use Canva, make your own menus, use Canva to print your own signage, you know, go to Desco and get it printed. Just do everything you can. Don't pay other people to do it, because it doesn't matter if it looks really rustic. People will love that. But what matters is your product and what people think of it. And as long as you're there with a smiling face and you're welcoming, that's what you need to do. I don't think you need to spend at that early sort of concept stage hundreds of thousands of dirhams to just test a concept. I think you need to keep it as lean and thrifty as possible.
Yeah, and something that you alluded to earlier as well, I think before we started recording too, if that pilot didn't go well, the mindset is that it's not a failure, right?
No,
it's like
nothing's a failure, right?
You got something out of it.
Yeah, I believe that, because everything you do, you know, I mentioned earlier as well, some of the stuff that we've got going on with the floods recently, all of this stuff that impacts your business. I try, and it is hard to look at everything as positive, because you're learning something. It's happened for a reason. And always try and find the silver lining under it, because, you know, that keeps you going on and stops you from giving up. But, you know, if the pilot doesn't work, take what you've learned. Can you make improvements to the product concept? Or is there another product off the back of that would be more, you know, fit in for the market or would be received better? Always take that information. It's, you know, that information that you obtain is so valuable from this testing, and maybe it can be applied somewhere else.
And that was a big mental block for me a few years ago. I didn't believe in getting anything started until I knew it would work. But some part of my brain wasn't functioning to tell me that you need to just do a pilot. Like, let the market, because you can sit in your bed or, you know, stay up till 2 a.m. thinking about if it would work or it would not, and then you never get ahead to doing it. Yeah. Right? And you never cross that bridge of entrepreneurship because you haven't stress tested your idea, or you're not comfortable with the fact that maybe it is a shit idea. Maybe you shouldn't do it. Yeah. The only people that can tell you that is your potential customers, right?
Exactly. You know, I think it stems back as well. We never really taught, are we, in school, it's okay to fail. You know, you're always rewarded for, you know, doing good things. Yeah. I think that needs to, and we try and, with our kids, you know, show them that, you know, things are not a failure, because you need to kind of have that attitude to take the risk away, to stop you from doing stuff. Because if you're always going to think, oh, I don't want to fail, or I'm not going to start this until I know I'm not going to fail, you'll never start. And think of how many people have amazing ideas that are being held back right now in the world because they're too scared that they're going to fail. It's sad, I think.
I'm there. I'm a work in progress. I'm much better than I used to be, but there's so many stories we can tell ourselves, right? Like, for example, you have dependents, right? You have kids. You've got a mom, and she's getting older, and then you have kids. Like, you have to, you can always come up with a story. So I'm like supporting my parents. Those are my dependents. So I'm thinking, like, what if this fails? Like, that's unfair to them. But if I never taken that leap, and that's why I say it's a work in progress, because there's a certain amount of fear that probably is healthy, but too much of it
will hold you back.
Will hold you completely back and rob you of opportunities to learn at the minimum, right? So some of the things that I've loved about being in business is the relationships that we've had now. So maybe for you, it's like suppliers, or like knowing how business is done, and that mastermind groups, we'll get into that a bit as well, or just finding out the possibilities. The world is so infinite, right? I want to switch gears though. Okay. You mentioned that right market pilot, but after that, when you went fully in, or before, or somewhere in the middle, you can tell me, when was the first time you realized you're on to something good? Like, when was the first time, do you remember a moment? And the moments can be weeks, moment can be a moment. Was there a moment you're like, this is my calling? This is what I'm doing 120% of my time?
Yeah, I think for the first year, it was always my passion, and that's what was my driving force. I was enjoying what I was doing. And I think the turning point for me was definitely when we took part in the Spinneys incubator scheme in 2020. And when we won that, and I saw the first orders coming through and seeing my product on the shelves, you know, in a much bigger capacity, that's when I knew it was my calling. And I was like, this just feels amazing, you know, the product's there. I still, you know, 2 years after, walk into every Spinneys and Waitrose supermarket, brand, you know, putting our products nice and neatly on the shelves, taking pictures. I don't think I'll ever lose that proudness, that, you know, feeling when I see it. I've created that and I've got that on the shelves. It's just a wonderful feeling. And, you know, as we grow and we're in more supermarkets, I just get prouder, and it really kind of keeps driving me on to know, to sell to more people and reach more people with Brew Society. But that definitely was the moment where I was just like, yep, this is definitely my calling.
Yeah, it's almost like a mind shift, like clouds have cleared up.
Yeah.
You know, any remaining clouds have now cleared up.
Yep, absolutely.
On the flip side, though, let's talk about the moments when you've wanted to shut it all down.
Oh, gosh.
And there's obviously, and you can tell me this is right, there's more of those than the ones that we are told we will have. So I want to talk about that in a couple of different ways. I want to talk about that in terms of patience. How do you work in your patience in those times where you feel like everything has gone wrong? This isn't what you wanted to get into. This is not what your business plan said.
This was not what I predicted. Yeah.
Not what I predicted. Do you have memories of wanting to press the off button?
Yeah, you know, they're frequent. I think, you know, because when things go wrong, they always go wrong at the worst timings as well. You know, things don't go wrong when you have everything in order. It's always kind of the worst timing, and you know, you just feel this weight on you, and
Murphy's Law.
Yeah, and responsibility for everyone who you employ, and it's hard, you know, because I think one of the things of being an entrepreneur, unless you have a business partner, it can be really lonely, and you feel that pressure, and you know, the highs are really high and the lows are really low. You know, my investor gave me some really good advice when we started working together, and he said I have to find a way to, you know, just ride this kind of wave, like in terms of like as a balance. You know, don't be so happy when you want a new account and then so low when something goes wrong. He said, because you're just going to torture yourself. You have to find a steady balance all the way through, cruise through the winds, cruise through the negative stuff. And I always try and have that in the back of my mind, because you know, it's not healthy being up and down all the time as you can be in business. And lots of things have gone wrong over the last 3 years. For as many wins we've had, we've probably, like you said, had 3 times the amount of bad stuff go wrong, you know. When we won the Spinneys order, I'll give you an example, which was a joyous moment, and I thought, you know, this is it, this is fantastic. We went into a new production site because obviously the volumes were much higher than we were currently producing, and the whole shipment, they put all the wrong labels on them and sent them into the Spinney stores, and we had to reclaim them all back. And I remember thinking, OMG, we're going to lose this contract. We're the only people in the whole world who've ever done anything like this. How could I have let this happen? It's all my fault. I'm not, you know, responsible enough to be here. I should shut shop and move on. And now I look back at it and it's quite funny, you know, and we dealt with it within less than a week. We solved the problem, and it's never happened again. But at that moment, probably, yeah, I wanted to go home and just hide and bury my head in the sand, and you know, my brew days would be over. But they set to try us. You learn from them, and we've never put a label on incorrectly since. We put measures in place to make sure that does not happen.
You just haven't made the same mistake again.
Yes,
there's other mistakes to do.
When they're costly, you learn fast, for sure.
So is this something that you're developing? So your investor gave you that advice of kind of averaging out your emotional bandwidth or level. Is there a practical way you work on it, or is it just something on the back of your mind? Is it something that routinely you kind of meditate on? How do you keep on developing that kind of mindset?
I'm constantly working on it because it's really hard, you know, when you win something new or something really positive happens. I just want to shout it from the rooftops and say, look what Brew's achieved, look how amazing this is. But I try now to maybe have an exciting moment with my husband and tell him when I get home from work, and then move on to the next thing, you know, instead of just wanting to celebrate every time we have a win. And when it comes to the bad things, like I say to my team as well, worrying and the stress that it creates, it's just useless. It's such a waste of energy. We have to pause, think how we're going to solve the problem, and that will ensure, the success of the business. So I work on it daily, and I'm not great at it, but it's definitely something I want to improve to make sure for my own health and my own balance in life that I get that balance. It's important.
It reminds me of a certain philosophy. I don't know if you're familiar with Stoicism, but there are Stoic philosophers back. Greek, Roman, I should know better, but that was part of their mantra, was to not celebrate very much and not worry too much, and live life kind of in the gray zone.
Yes.
And when things are going well, don't be super content and happy, and when things are not going well, don't chase contentment.
Yes.
Just know that it's such a work in progress, because you can't just read a book on Stoicism and like, okay, now I'm Stoic.
No, you can't. But I think you can try and have it in the back of your mind and really, apply it when the need comes. So when you have this high or low moment, really think about it. And, you have to catch yourself sometimes, because I instantly, when things go wrong, just kind of want to go into that panic mode. But if you can just remember at some point to catch yourself, to just keep going, and maybe not even answer those problems that day. Can they wait till tomorrow, when you've had that time to reflect and think about it, instead of just panicking and crashing straight away? So I think if you read the book, or you kind of want to do this, it's always going to be a work in progress. There's no quick fix to it. You just have to keep it in your mind and keep working on it.
I don't know if I heard hints of that in what you said too, but imposter syndrome, right? So Alina has this a lot more than I do. As my business partner, she's the one who started the business. So as she's a 0 to 1 lady, she sometimes feels when things are going wrong that she's not meant to be a business person. And part of it, if you dig into it and do some psychoanalysis like Sigmund Freud, I would try to trace it back to maybe her dad, maybe my parents, who in the initial year and a half, they told us, guys, what are you doing? We both have well-paying careers, good jobs. This is not us. Don't do this. You can always go back to a career. And that it only attacks you. Those kind of memories only attack you when you're at your lowest, right? When things are not right. So have you had experience with thinking like, okay, this is not me. I should go back to a career, salaried world. And you know what? I gave it a shot, but this is not me.
I think I don't really have those about going back to a salary world. I think I couldn't do it anymore. So if a disaster struck and Brew wasn't for the future, I would have to find something else, because I think it's just in my DNA. It's I love that kind of diversity, that freedom, that creativity. But I definitely, when you touched on that kind of imposter syndrome, around the time when I had my children, for example, and I was working full time in London, I definitely saw around that time creeping into my thought process a bit more that, I wasn't kind of good enough for what I did, or, I don't know if lots of people experience this, but when you're a new mom and, then you go back to work after maternity leave, that doubt creeps in, am I good enough to be here? Am I a bad mom for leaving my children at home? And I think it's around that time where I was maybe the hardest on myself. Like, am I good enough to do this? And that's probably when those kind of thoughts, I would think, crept in for me. Because when I was younger, in my 20s, I thought I could conquer the world. There was no doubt in my mind that I could apply myself and get to anywhere I wanted to get. But I think, when I had the children, that's when I questioned things more, and, what was I meant to be doing? And that's around the time I really kind of recall those kind of more negative, challenging questions coming into my mind.
Like existential crises.
Yes.
What was my purpose?
What is it?
To pass the butter. That's a Rick and Morty joke. I don't know if you remember that. But Marwan and I were talking before we started recording too, and a past guest of ours has mentioned this too, that I think business owners in general are very good at self-inflicting pain or being, why else would you want to do this? Like the gentleman in question is always working, no matter what flight he's on, what country he's on, he can't get off the wheel. And not because it's someone's telling him or someone's telling me or someone's telling you, you don't want to get away from it.
You don't. And it's who you are, I was on holiday for 2 weeks this summer in the UK, and I say holiday very loosely because when we arrived for the first week, I pretty much work full time. But I love that. I wouldn't change it, And when I came back, I was talking to some other business owners that I collaborate with, and they had similar, situations where they went to the States for 2 weeks, but pretty much worked the whole time. And I think as much as now and again we like to have a little whinge about it, we wouldn't want it any other way, It's just, I think when you find what your passion is and you can start a business in that area, it doesn't feel like work, and you don't want to escape it. You want to know what's going on. You want to have your finger on the pulse completely at all times, because that's the way I describe it, my fourth child. It's my passion, and I don't want to be left in the dark, So I find it hard to kind of completely switch off, particularly like things like vacation and stuff. But I'm working on that one too.
Yeah, but work in itself can be meditative, right? Because you're working on building a future. You're working on things that you like because you set your own tasks.
Yes.
Yes, you have incoming tasks from things that you don't want to do. But typically on vacations, you either find you're putting out a fire.
Yeah.
Or you're working on something aspirational that you didn't get time in your day-to-day.
That's so true. That
right?
is, yeah.
That's where you finally have like the mental headspace to be like, hey, let me test out this idea in my head. Never got to write it down or talk about it. Does that happen for you on vacations?
That did this time when I was in the UK. So week one was really about kind of exploring new routes to market, new product developments, and talking to various different suppliers in the UK to get some ideas, really exploring, like you say, these things that are in my head or on my to-do list, which just get your time gets eaten up. You don't have enough time to explore it when you're kind of in the business. But because I was outside the business, I kind of were able to think about these longer term goals. And then week two was very much putting out a fire. So yes, it's good. You hit the nail on the head.
It's usually one or the two, right? Is you never do your regular day-to-day stuff. I want to stick to challenges. I know you're going through one right now with the recent floods. So I just want to test your way about thinking challenges, because we have an example to work with right now. And I want to see how that process looks like from the time you hear when the fire finally hits to the time it takes to get yourself together and work on a resolution and put some resolution in place. And what would you count as success at the end of it? So maybe you can give us the story about what recently happened with your stock.
Yeah, sure. So in the last week of July, our factory in Fujairah was hit very badly by the floods that happened in the region. So many businesses were really badly affected. We were lucky. We had no injuries. The factory was evacuated, I should say, in enough time. So all the staff were able to get out, which was our number one concern and our number one priority. But after that, the rain and the dam water just kept coming. And it was actually up to your shoulders in height. So you just can't imagine it until you see it with your own eyes. The sheer volume of water, even in the yard at the factory outside, it was like just one enormous reservoir, just so much water. And this for us meant that we lost all of our raw material, all of our packaging material. The machines we use to produce our product now have to go through some form of maintenance and repair because obviously the debris and the water damage to them. And it was an absolute nightmare, just a business owner's worst disaster, to be honest with you. And we found out about it when I was in the UK. It was the week 2 of my holiday. It was the Wednesday, I remember the call. But I think what I found the most challenging was that no one could access the area. So there were so many days of unknown, hoping, can we salvage anything? How's it going to look? That kind of, I found that unknown stage of just having to wait and just wait to see was really challenging because, you're in this limbo. Are you needing to find a route to replenish your stock in a different way? Can you take some product out? It's just complete unknown. So that was really challenging for me. But then when I got back to Dubai the following week on the Monday, I think I just fell into my element. I'm quite if there's a catastrophe or something, I'm a complete fixer by nature. So I was in kind of, on a mission mode to try and fix this and understand. And because we still at that point couldn't understand exactly the extent, I just accepted the fact that we lost everything. And I was like, I can sit and worry about this, longer, or I can accept the fact that I've lost everything and now we need to go to plan B. And I remember my team, I love each and every one of them, and they all looked as if they wanted to cry at that point when I said to them, no, we've lost everything, let's move into plan B. And I was like, there's no point, we can worry about this for another week, or we can fix it. And if we worry about it, it's just dead, wasted time. There's no point, let's move on. So that's what we did. And we found a new production site within that week. We literally went to all of our suppliers, explained really raw and honestly, and sent them pictures. This is what's happened. How can you help us? Can you get us raw materials so that we, ingredients so that we can blend our tea quicker? Can you help us without any discounts? Just really ask those questions and be upfront. And then we managed to source enough material that's going to arrive sort of at the end of August, so we can go into production in another country again. And we just went into complete crisis fixing mode and haven't looked back, And the way I look at it, if we can salvage anything, fantastic. But at that time, we needed to fix the problem to make sure our customers have the stock and there's no interruption with their supply. And that was our priority to solve the problem.
Are you still in the problem? Is it still ongoing?
It is, because obviously we're producing now in another country in the short term until our site back here is back up and running. So obviously that brings with itself teething problems. They have different processes. We have to jump through different hoops. But we're moving forward, and it's looking really positive that we will have more product back in Dubai in September.
Well, and what would you count as success? Do you feel like getting out of this situation is already like a success for you, or?
Yeah, I think for a long time, and I think when any business grows, you need this diversity in terms of your suppliers and your production, particularly if you don't have the machines yourself and you use third-party people to produce for you. And for a couple of months, something in my gut was telling me, have all my eggs in one basket. And for this business to be less risk, I need to balance this out. So I started making lots of inquiries to find alternative places to produce our products. So we would use everyone, but just spread it out, just so if anything ever happened, the business could, keep going. And that was just something really niggling away with me for so long. So I'd already started putting those steps in place to make sure we had other sites to produce the product. And look, I'm just so thankful I did. I listened to that gut feel that was telling me, this business is growing, sort this issue out. It meant that we were able to kickstart that pretty fast.
That's amazing. That's good. That's good future. What's that called? What's the word I'm looking for?
Listen to that inner voice.
Yeah, prescience, almost like prescient, right? Like you know something's going to happen. I want to talk about something you mentioned earlier, and I'm switching gears again as I do. But good luck with resolving this current thing. And I know it's been hard for a lot of businesses, and I'm glad you're doing something about it instead of just holding it within you. I want to talk about loneliness. You mentioned that earlier, but running a business, who do you call most? Let me ask you this: who do you call most at 2 a.m. for business advice?
Oh gosh, it really depends on who it is. I think on a day-to-day, it would be my network of super ladies, my growth group. But my husband's my biggest supporter, and my angel investor is one of my biggest supporters. So I usually kind of go around all three of them, if I've been honest, to get kind of all three perspectives before I make up my own decision. So they would be kind of my close-knit group that I would, kind of pick their brain and ask them,
Can I talk about picking the brain? Because to make that relationship useful, there's a give and a take, right?
Absolutely.
If you're always taking from these kind of relationships, and this is a challenge I'm looking to get better at. I have a lot to ask for, but I feel like I don't have a lot to give. So what I feel like I should give is respect, the intangible things like, respect for time, and respectfulness in general. But how do you make these relationships kind of go both ways for when you can, so that you're providing value, you're taking value, but you're providing value? Do you have examples of how you approach that brainstorming session?
I think, with any relationship, you kind of get out what you put in. Okay. So I think that's why it's really important to find the support or the network that's right for you. You don't want to just kind of willy-nilly with your time, all these, different groups. You have to find the one that you really gel with and the personalities gel and it works for you. And when you do, like I have with my amazing growth group, I think, is what you put in, you get out. So an example of, kind of things that we do. So we meet on a monthly basis, whether it's, online or in person. And we really share our experiences with each other. So one of the things I did recently with Brew Society was we invested in getting someone to help us with our brand story, to make sure that the customer really understands why is Brew Society here, what is our mission, what is our purpose, what is our what, why, who. And I worked intensively on that to take all of my ideas to really kind of make that story clear. And then I took it to my growth group and I said, look, this is what I've done for my brand. This is the person I used. I'd love to get him to come in for an hour to do a workshop for you guys to try what I've done, because I found real value in it. And I think that maybe one of those kids, it's like things like that. When you try or find something, sharing it with them, taking them on that journey with you, sharing your experiences, sharing your know-how, even if, there might be some corporation tax or something, if you know something, just kind of really being open and honest. And I think because the growth group that I'm part of, we are all from completely different industries. You have that kind of raw openness with each other and you trust each other. But that's how the relationship works. You can't always take. I think that's where, people, just everyone's busy, right? And if you constantly, people are taking, I think it just becomes a bit exhaustive. You've got your own life and your own business to run. But I think we have a really good balance because people always try and bring something, and if they've learned something, then they try and share that with the group.
That's amazing. I like those kind of groups where everyone's kind of contributing. Yeah. Because the reason I ask this is you come from a salaried world, right? What eventually ends up happening is most of your network is salaried employees as well. When you take the leap towards your business, you find that your network has to change or starts changing kind of organically. So the advice I used to get from other salaried people may not be as relevant as, God bless their hearts, great intentions, good ideas, but it's not, they don't have the same skin in the game.
No,
right?
I agree with you. And I think that's why it's important that, you find your support network and you increase your networking, because if you're constantly taking advice from people who may be slightly more risk adverse, who have a 9-to-5 job and a salary every month, their answer is going to be completely different to someone who's bootstrapped their own business, is working around the clock. I think you have to branch out and increase your network to have a good balance.
And some of the stuff that you'll hear from this kind of network, tell me this is right or wrong for you, is harsh. Not because it's meant to be harsh, not because it's said with bad intention, but it's sometimes some things I hear from my business friends is a slap to my face.
They are brutally honest, and I love them for that. And I think that's what you need though, right? As much as I share kind of, with my husband, my day-to-day stories, he's just really happy to hear them. He doesn't want to challenge me because he knows I've had a hard day, Whereas when everyone in our business, our growth group, talk about kind of the challenges we face, we're almost like that mirror, kind of for people to take a hard look at themselves. We kind of will challenge, but we're also our biggest champions. We're always supporting each other on the same side. We might challenge you on some stuff, but we're everyone's biggest supporters in that group.
Yeah, it's the intention that counts, right? If you're coming at somebody as a way of helping them, then I don't mind the tone. Personally, I don't take offense as long as it's like, oh, I didn't think about that. Thank you for that. Yeah. Because you need that push sometimes, right? Speaking of, business advice and who you call at 2 a.m. and the group, you've also now raised funding. Yeah. First ever round.
It is. So we completed in July last year. So it was, again, such a huge milestone for the business, and a pinch myself moment, because to have someone who is as passionate about the business and believes in my vision and my goals, that's just the biggest, kind of just justification that what you're doing is the right thing, right? So it just felt so. It was definitely one of those high moments.
Yeah, I want to dig into that a little bit too, because we sometimes feel like, so you were bootstrapped when you started, right? And so are we. We find that we need some sort of leverage to take the business to the next level, or we're kind of bootstrapping our way to averageness in the sense that, there's a lot of post-its on the wall of things we want to do, and we can't wait to do them. But if we go at our current run rate, they're kind of unachievable. But at the same time, there's a price for these things, right? Because now you're involving someone in your business that may or may not have a say in which of these posts actually come to light. You kind of have your priorities set, but they may not match. So how did you go about selecting the right partner? Like, what was your qualification? Because most people think that, okay, I need to sell myself to a funding partner, someone who has the money. I need to give. But at the same time, you have to make sure that's right for you.
Absolutely.
So how did you qualify? And I think his name is Patrick
Doyle. So for me, it was really important that I found someone who completely supports my vision and believes it. They're not going to come in and want to change the direction of the business, change the ideas. I wanted somebody who would let me get on with it, basically, as well. So we're happy to let me steer the business, I think, someone who could also help the business too. That was another important. So I didn't want someone who could basically have day-to-day kind of involvement in the business, but somebody who wasn't just going to write a check and then be right, I'll see you in a year's time. I wanted them to help steer the business a little bit as well. And definitely I am aware of, some of my weak spots and where I need to work on. And I was really looking for an angel investor to, one, provide some cash for the growth, but also to mentor me in certain areas. And that's why, I really think I lucked out with Patrick, because he has been great for the business. He has, provided the finance that we needed to grow and develop our product range. But he's also been a great support to me in terms of, when I'm recruiting, for example, I was a bit nervous taking on my first recruit, and how would I interview them? How would that process go? And he's held my hand through that. And, not only tried to find different people for us to interview, he's taken part in the interview process with me. And he's very much involved as much as I want him to be, so it still very much feels like my business. And he helps whenever I ask him to, basically. So it's about really finding that energy where you both are on the same page. I think it's so important. You have to want to spend time with them because they're around, So all of these things were important to me, that I found kind of someone who really believed in what I was doing, someone who would get involved when I wanted them to get involved, and someone who could really guide me and has that wealth of experience. He's been in business a lot longer than me. His company just celebrated his 25th birthday. So he brings a wealth of knowledge. And I really wanted to be able to tap into that as well to develop my skills.
How often do you guys talk?
Right now, probably he's on holiday and back on the 18th, so probably every day to kind of sort this Fugera issue out that we have with our stock. But we tend to meet on a monthly basis, and that's kind of where I give him an update on what we're doing as a business, the financials.
Is it very formal? Or?
No, not at all. Okay. We sit down, it's formal in the sense of we dedicate that 2 hours to our meeting, there's no phones or anything. We're very present in that time. And we discuss and we get creative too, because, there's products we want to develop together with Brew, and it's just really that moment, it's Brew's moment, he really kind of gives those, 2 hours where we discuss everything Brew, from what we've done, where we're going and what we need. And then he comes on and offers, what support he can.
Yeah, I was talking to a friend of mine to help me think about like what the right time is to raise funding. And so I wanted to know from you as well, just to connect the dots for myself. When did you feel like, okay, bootstrapping will not get me to my goals, I need to start looking for extra funding? Was it something on your mind for a long time? Were you doing the math? It didn't make sense? Or what was the justification, the biggest selling point for you to like, I need to go out and raise money? Or did it just come to you as an opportunity?
I definitely had given it so much thought, and I definitely did the maths and looked at the numbers. And all of our kind of bootstrapping, our savings that I put into the business was really being held up in stock because we'd run such big accounts at that time. And I really wanted to develop the products that we had. So, because we started off just with loose leaf tea, and I really wanted to develop these plastic-free tea bags, which need an injection of cash to do. So the business could have carried on as it was, just being a loose leaf tea company in the supermarkets, and we probably could have organically grown at a slower pace. But I wanted these tea bags, and I really believed. And the feedback that we were getting from the supermarkets and the customers, they love our unique creations, but they wanted the convenience. It was very, customer led. So to do that, I knew I had to find an investor, and that's when I started, kind of looking at my personal profile on LinkedIn and my personal brand, and really trying to elevate that so I could attract potential investors. Prior to Patrick, we did get an offer from another lady, which just turned out wasn't, the right, because I think it's so important to make sure you do find the person, because you're going to spend a lot of time with them. And it has to work, it has to be a relationship that kind of works really well. So, it's kind of, around that time to get the product, we needed the investment to grow.
I do want to jump into your ability to listen to customers, but before that, you mentioned Patrick was helping you around recruiting time as well. So people in the business, the question that I want to ask selfishly is retention. It's a long story to get the right people, and we all know how to talk about it, and no one's kind of really figured that out. But retention, I think, is more figure outable.
Yeah.
What have you found for yourself? So let's say you found good people, and we all know when we found good people.
Yeah.
Right? There's no checklist. Like, you just know you found the right person, and you want to keep them in the business for as long as possible.
Yeah.
What do you do to keep them engaged, happy with you, and convince them by words or not, or actions, to stay with you, believe in the vision, come with you for the ride, and kind of keep them with you for long term? Is there something specific that you feel like you bring to the table in that regards, in terms of retaining top people for yourself?
I think it's really important to always take people on that journey with you. And, I always work on that so that the team understand, the longer term plan, the longer term strategy, but the shorter as well of what we're trying to do. We work in an open plan office, so we talk freely to each other constantly throughout the day. Sometimes I want to go into the office and wear one of those hats to say, don't talk to me for 10 minutes, because we're all constantly talking, And I think that's really important, that, when anything is going on with their customers or their day-to-day job, I'm there with them, and we're in this together. So I think that's really, really important, that we all work as one team to get the job done. And we do other things as well. Like, I like to socialize with the team as well. I think that's really important to build those connections outside of work too. We try and do like a lunch once a month, whether it be in the office, just to really kind of build those like social kind of, connections. But I think the biggest thing that helps you retain people is one, to show respect, and everyone's human. So things happen in life, you just have to be supportive of your team, because no one has the perfect life, things happen, and you need to really show your support to the team. And I think also here, which goes a long, long way, which I see so little at, unfortunately, is just showing some progression in their career, having clear objectives, making sure that they are trained, and there's a training program or schedule in place to show that you want to invest in these people, and also to show that clear career progression, because I see it so much in this country where people are put in roles and there's nowhere else for them to move. My husband's experienced that moving here, and I think it excites people when they get a role and they realize that they could become the manager, or they could move into a different department, and I think that excites people, and helps you retain staff as well, so that they see what the future holds.
So there's almost like an organizational chart that have you come up with an org chart, like a hypothetical one?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Now and in the future, I think it's so important, of all. And I talk really openly to the guys in the office. We discuss kind of, getting them to try different things. So try a bit of marketing, try a little bit of product development, because now we're such a small team, everyone has to pitch in together. But if they can try everything, when we become this big team, they can decide what's their passion. Yeah. Yes, and I have, one of my team members in the office, Madel, she's so passionate about the product, and we really want to work with her to develop, her skills in terms of tea tasting. She has all of this kind of ideas of, new creations that she wants to bring to the market. market, and that's just really her passion. So we're really working with her kind of in terms of product management, going down that road, because right now she wears about 10 hats, as we all do, but, you know, longer term, developing those skills. And I think, you know, showing people what the future looks like, sharing that vision with them and taking them on that journey with you really kind of helps you retain staff.
So speaking of wearing 10 hats, you probably have 1,000. Have you ever written a job description for yourself?
Oh gosh, I tried, but it just becomes like my to-do list really of all the things that I do on a daily basis. So it's really, I should, because I think, you know, we are such a small team still. So I do spend a lot of time in the business instead of, you know, working on the business, which I want to get a bit better at. So I should probably write that job description, and I should own it and have it on my desk so I can see it every day to remember what, you know, I should be doing and what, you know, the other staff should be doing as well.
I really like how you phrase that, of working on the business versus in the business. That was a mind shift for us bit early on into our business for Alina and I. We read this book called The E-Myth Revisited. I don't know if you've heard of it.
No, I've not read that one.
My audience hates me because I bring it up in every conversation. But the subtitle of the book is Why Most Small Businesses Fail and What to Do About It.
Okay.
And it's a beautifully written book. I think everyone should read that version at least once. And it's mostly talking about, you know, if you're a baker and you started a bakery, those two things are not the same.
Yeah.
So you need to work on the business and not in the business, because otherwise you're going to be in the kitchen the entire time while the customers are, you know, having their own troubles getting what they want. And one of the things there is to write down this job description and then kind of start delegating things away. So I'm going to talk to you about that, because that's the hardest part for us as entrepreneurs, to give things away, right? So I made mine based on that. I made a new one a month ago, 8 pages long. I blame the font size, it's pretty big, but it was still 8 pages long. I took it to one of my a coach that I was interviewing to take on to become my coach, and he said 8 pages.
Yeah.
He said it should be one.
Yeah, always should be one.
It's like it should be 1 page long. Otherwise, what you're telling me, you're doing things you shouldn't be doing, or you don't know how to delegate. And I said both.
No, I'm with you on that. I find delegating hard because, you know, it's when you have 1,000 things going on every day. If something takes you 2 minutes to do, but it takes you half an hour to teach somebody, it's hard. You have to, you know, I've had this long discussion actually with my accountant recently, and he was like, you have to do it, Laura. He said, you have to invest that time, train people so that, you know, you can step aside and do the other stuff. So particularly since I've been back from holiday, I've really worked hard on that, trying to kind of teach more so I can, you know, let go of a little bit more. But it's really hard.
How's that going for you?
Oh, you can come in the office and ask the rest of the team. Yeah, I'm doing my best. It is really hard because it's, you know, you want to accomplish 100 things in a day. So you go home at night and you're like, oh, I've achieved all of this today. Whereas when you're training people, it's hard, isn't it? Because what you actually finish and you complete, it becomes a lot less. But you have to look at the long term, and invest in that time means longer term you will do a lot more. And that's what I keep trying to tell myself, and I'm working on it.
That's what I'm trying to tell myself too. Like, you not see the benefits now, but the other thing that gets in the way of becoming a super delegator is when it's your baby. Yeah. The business is your baby, and you see it with a certain vision, and you see every little thing with a certain vision, which is not easy for everyone to get. So it's unfair to ask an employee to care about your business as much as you do, because it's not fair.
Yeah.
It's my business. You shouldn't be caring that much. But when you see the end result, sometimes you're like, I could have done it better.
I know, but you have to, I try and think, you know, everything doesn't have to be perfect, right? And I am a bit of a perfectionist, so again, I'm working on that one too. But sometimes as long as the message and the words are right and it has the right outcome, everything doesn't have to be perfect. And I think it's hard as a business owner because you want it to be perfect, you know, like I will stress over a comma and a dot and for hours, you know, to make sure it reads absolutely perfectly. Whereas you just have to give people the freedom, and, you know, because as your business does scale, you're going to get more of that, and there's going to be more opinions and more ways of doing things. So the sooner I think you can let go a little bit of that and your head's version of what should be perfect, the better you'll deal with it. And I'm
now, while you were talking, I was thinking about this too. Like maybe it's the output that you're craving. There's there's two kinds of it. One, there's two kinds of it that come out with a negative outcome. One, there's a mistake in something.
Yeah.
Two, it's not up to your standards. So what I'm was talking to Alina about, I'm like, if we separate these two, and if there's mistakes, that's another way to deal with that. If that happens too long, then you're not delegating to the right person.
Yes, that's very true. Yeah.
But if it's not up to your standard, maybe we can let that go.
Yes, I think we have to try.
Get to 80%, but it's usually one or the other. If you look at when you're unsatisfied with the output of something that you delegated, it's either a mistake in there, like I know there's small ones like commas and dots and stuff like that you can just fix and just let go. But repeated mistakes don't help, and repeatedly not getting your what you imagined also doesn't help, right?
I think, also being British, I tend to be very polite in terms of how I write an email, for example, or how I approach a topic with probably 1,000 thank yous and sorries, and kind of that's just a typical
that's
British.
Canadian, that's not British.
No,
that's our thing.
Well, that's why I fitted so well in Canada. And that's how I would do. And sometimes even just getting used to that, how different people would write things, to a customer. And I always like to flower things up and make everything really pretty and happy and, kind of where other people maybe are complete direct to the point, And I think a business has a place for all of that. You just have to find, everyone's place. But it is hard because you want to control everything when it's your business. You want to control the tone of voice in everything. You want to control the visuals. You want to control everything. But you can't. So, you have to really set the processes in place, set the vision, the mission, so people buy into that and it's all on the same page. And then sometimes, it's good when people have their input and their creativity as well, because it really helps, develop the brand when it's more than one person's opinion. So we have to give a bit of freedom on that, I think.
Yeah, and it's something you can qualify beforehand, right? Like I know I'm going to jump to the next topic and build that bridge, but customer-centric, you're very... It seems to me, and you can tell me this is right or wrong, and you maybe qualify people that already have that kind of mindset that the customer is super kind of important. But I want to talk about your customer service skills.
Okay.
A little birdie told me, well, it was just something some interview did before, but you are known to call people like at the start of your business when an order went wrong, or and you're very much in touch with your customers. Is that something that you've learned from your previous careers? From your salary jobs and Avon maybe as well. Has that kind of carried over, and how do you find it kind of day to day? Are you still active with your end customers? I know not Spinneys is your customer, but the people drinking the tea.
Absolutely.
Are you still in touch with them?
I think it's so important. And I explain this to all of my team as well. Like without the customer, we are not in business. So, you can always take a really bad customer experience and put a positive spin on it. We had an example recently where a customer placed an order online and the delivery notification went out. Our warehouse packs it straight away, so that was slick and everything was great. But there was some miscommunication with our third-party courier, and they said they were going to deliver it in the day, and the customer was still working at 9 o'clock at night, and there's just this kind of big complaint. And I get it, like your time is valuable. You don't want to wait for a parcel all day. And, like I explained to my team, let's, do something to make it up to this customer. It's really important. She's waited for this parcel. And I think just, really turning the narrative and turning a bad experience into a positive. This customer now messages me all the time saying, look, I've, showed my friend your products. I love it. We really took that bad, and we kind of understood that was really frustrating, because if I had to wait in all day till 9 o'clock, I'd be really frustrated too. So we shared her frustration. We apologized. I think that's really rare. He just say sorry. It's okay if and it meant so much to that customer, and we turned that bad experience for her around. And those kind of loyalties are so important to an SME business, to a small business. You need your customers to be loyal. So I am from that old school kind of, area where I believe the customer's always right. And if there's an issue, I will try and fix it to the best of my ability. And I will always apologize, because I want everyone who deals with Brew Society to have the best customer experience, the best products, and I want them to keep coming back.
Yeah, that's so rare these days, right? Like I'll give you two examples, actually one. So when Alina and I, we weren't married yet, and I was kind of hesitant for one reason, and I told her this, and I said, we haven't had our big fight yet.
Okay.
She said, what do you mean? Like things are going
Yeah.
good. Like we're on to the next level. And I said, no, our relationship hasn't been tested. Right? So, because I truly believe that having sort of bad experiences with people in your life are for the better. Because if they get resolved, you're stronger than you were before.
Yes.
If they don't get resolved, you move on from each other's lives, and you don't have to continue that relationship, whatever that relationship may be. So it's a win-win on both sides.
But did you have to have a big fight?
No, I tried. I came up with random stuff. Like she got me a birthday present, and back then I was this emo kid. I don't celebrate birthdays, and she got me a birthday gift. And the next day I took that back to her. I'm like, can you please return it? I don't accept gifts. I thought that would start something, and she was very polite about it. She's like, oh, that's you, then you do you, you know. I'm like,
she was probably cursing you all the way to the shop.
She was. She brings it up till today, and she hasn't bought me a gift since, which is fine by me. But I want you to shout this out from the rooftops, this whole customer service game, right? Like you'll have a lot of, let's say, big money players in the market who come with ideas like, I'm going to start this business, but they care about the product, the service, the flow, the factory, the app or whatever. But we have forgotten to talk to the bloody customer.
And the aftercare, I think, as well. People are very, here, like big brands and big department stores, they have the great products. They, want to make sure you have the best price online, and they want to get it to you within 20 minutes of you placing an order. Yeah. But then they haven't thought past that. So, the kind of the ongoing relationship with the customer, what if there's any issues? It's as if there's a shiny front end that everyone wants to perfect, but they haven't thought about the whole process. And we really do that at Brew. Like we phone everyone who tries to purchase on our website and abandons their shopping cart. They will get a phone call from us asking if there's anything wrong. Was there any technical issues with our website? Did they not find what they liked? Can we help you? Can we send you a sample? Because I think, we want them to see a human side to the business. We don't have a bricks and mortar store of our own where people can just pop in. So that data and that information about our customers is really important. And we will always reach out to them and just see what else we can do to help. I know we have, the supermarkets where they can buy it, but we want people to see and feel this brand as a UAE brand, and we hear and we value their business. So we do really try hard in terms of that customer service side of things.
I want to give a shout out to two businesses in Dubai that I find extremely good with their customer service. So Kareem.
Yes, Kareem
is
are good.
Actually brilliant.
Yes.
I love interacting with Kareem when there's a problem, because they get on it and they resolve it and they follow up, and it's just it's a great experience. And just the way they're trained to talk to people. And secondly, this studio actually Podster. So shout out to you. This guy is over and above with, I might be a small customer. I come in once in a while, but just the attention that these guys give, and especially Marwan gives to me, WhatsApp, like I'll bother him on Sundays, and I shouldn't, I know, because it's his Sunday, but doesn't mind, and does it with a smile and helps out, because that's missing in the big company world, right? A lot. So I do want you to shout that out from the two rooftops. I want to talk to you about something else now. Day-to-day planning. So we talked about long-term visioning and planning and stuff like that. How do you do that? Do you wake up in the morning, figure out what you're going to do? Do you know from the night before? Because, wearing 60,000 different hats in the business can, writing that job description, but just the day-to-day planning. Do you feel like you write your job description every day?
I feel, I have a to-do list every single day. I think, I tend to wake up, go to the gym, and then it's all about kind of preparing mentally for my day in the office. I tend to be a really early riser anyway. So, I'm in the office sharpish in the morning, and, the first thing I do every morning is talk to the team. What's on your agenda today? What, do they need from my side of things? I look at kind of what's in my calendar, because it's always full for weeks in advance. And then I map that out on, Post-its around my desk, all different ones, colors for how urgent it is. And then I usually kind of, spend some time catching up on emails first thing in the morning too. And then I'm usually out to the office with customer meetings and everything from the afternoon. And then I usually catch up again a little bit more in the evening on anything I missed. So probably could do a bit more planning in my day, but it's just, you know, with having a small business, things could change so quickly. And you think sometimes you have your day mapped out, like, you know, I'm here with you now, I meant to do a tea tasting with a customer after, and, you know, some admin stuff in the office this afternoon, but who knows, I could get a call after this and my whole day could just be completely different, the rest of the day different to where I planned. So just a lot of post-it notes everywhere. Mind dumps, post-it notes, thoughts of, you know, what I should be doing, product development and customer things, and
I mean, I'm in the same boat, and I've tried to systemize it, right? Like, so I try to look at my week.
Okay.
But then there's cascading effects of a day like today where, you know, yes, we're meeting and then something else happens after that. Whatever you didn't get to today also affects what you didn't do tomorrow and the day after. So
rolls over,
So I find planning to be a useless exercise sometimes because I've spent all this time to map out my week, but then it doesn't go with the way you expect to go. And so then I went into more of like, just go with the flow and do whatever comes to your mind, which is also dangerous because there's...
Do you find though, like, you know, sometimes I try and over plan everything all week. So every day, you know, what am I doing every hour? But then when you do just let it just flow and you look back at, say, your overall to-do list, like at the end of the week or the end of the month even, I'm amazed about how many things I've crossed off without actually saying you must do this at 9 o'clock or you must do this at like 11 o'clock, you know, in the day. You do it because it's all in your head. It's there and you know what you're meant to do. And sometimes I don't think we give ourselves enough credit that we know what we should be doing, and we try and map it all out and take an hour to do that when there's an hour you could be doing other stuff. But I'm always amazed, like, when I get to the end of the week and I look at that to-do list, I'm like, oh wow, we've done all of this stuff and we've ticked it off, you know. So I think sometimes it's about having a bit of faith in yourself that you know what you're doing, right? And you know that you're going to do what's important, what's necessary in that time.
Yeah, I had this exact thing. So I want to show you my notebook after we do this too. I wrote my task list for the week. Yeah. Just went through with the week. And, you know, by Thursday last week, just looked at it again, started crossing. I'm like, wow.
You did, yeah.
I didn't have reminders for these things anywhere. They were not on my calendar. But I feel like the important stuff bubbles up to the top in your brain, unless it's a very specific process that you're doing. Like if you're, let's say, launching a new campaign for our business, like when you launch a new advertising, there's very fixed tasks. And they're all deliverables on a certain date, so that the client can get it and review it and then bring it back and we can launch it live. So those are very fixed things. So you need to have those.
You have to have that, yes.
But with business owner things or like things that are a bit more out the box, aspirational, continuation of an old plan kind of thing, I think the important stuff just bubbles to the top.
You just get through it, I think. And, you know, I try to live by all of the difficult stuff. I do it first. I'm a morning person by nature, so I'm at my best in the morning. You know, don't ask me to make tough decisions at 7 o'clock in the night because my brain is just slowly, I'm not a night person at all. So anything I know is really challenging, or I really have to think about, or is a tough decision to make, then I would absolutely do that, hit it head on first thing in the morning. And then that almost kind of gives me a spring in my step too. I'm like, yes, I've done this, you know, and now it's onto the slightly easier tasks that you have to do. And that always works really well for me, doing that,
I'm laughing because I try to think of it way. There's been a few days. I'm a very lazy entrepreneur and I'm proud to admit it too, but that's why I got into business, because I'm very lazy and I'm not suited to jobs very well. You can tell by my t-shirt. So how about no? But I do the most difficult thing, as you said, in the morning. Yeah. I'm done by 10:30, that difficult thing. I want to take a nap.
Take a nap?
I want to take a nap. Yeah, I could take a nap sitting down. I can take a nap right now.
No way.
I'm very lazy like that.
I can't. I'm not a napper at all.
Really?
Yeah. Like even kind of, you know, when I had my children, I'd be up in the night kind of feeding and stuff. Yeah. I always struggled with that. Like my brain will not switch off, you know? Yeah. It's kind of, even when I'm working for, you know, when I was working for Tata, it just wouldn't. It was kind of constantly, I'm not a great napper.
Yeah. No, don't trust me. Brain doesn't turn off because the dreams in my naps are pretty vivid. No. It's just tiredness because I think when I take on something excruciatingly intellectually hard and I get through it, I need that rest. And I'm also an introvert or more, I skew more towards introvertedness, which means I lose energy. Not that I don't like people or I don't like socializing. I'm okay at it. I just lose energy. Yeah. And then when I need to recover that, those naps are beautiful. Oh. So if I have too many meetings, like after this conversation,
you could have a nap on the sofa.
I have a massage booked after this to recover.
I'm so
right?
jealous.
You know, but it's just my self recovery combined with my laziness. But no, I do find that challenge of like the day to day kind of planning, and I totally agree with the spin you put on it too. That you know, the important stuff gets taken care of. You just have to trust yourself and give yourself more credit to know what's important, right? Because I was talking to another guest, and we used to do this kind of theory, and for those listening, you might not fully understand, but we'd have a chart with the y-axis saying impact of a certain idea or a task, and the x-axis would say effort, right? And then we'd kind of plan these tasks into these 4 quadrants. So what you're working on, does it have high impact and high effort?
Yeah.
Okay, so then that needs to be planned and dealt with in a more systematic way. Something that has high impact and low effort, do it immediately. So this is the first thing you would do.
Which you would,
Something that has low impact and high effort, you don't do it. You never take care of that. So I get into these traps sometimes when I have an overwhelm, but I do find that it's the exercise is done by my brain mentally.
Yeah.
This kind of exercise kind of bubbles up on top.
It's all in there, isn't it? And it does, you know, it knows, because no one knows your business better than you. So you do know kind of what's important. Because I think when you have your own business, that's more important than when you work for somebody, because nothing feels as important, doesn't it? But when you have your own business and your time is crucial and certain things have to be done, I think you just prioritize that. You just know it's kind of in here, and you know kind of what needs to be done and when to do it.
This is more helpful when you have like multiple board of advisors. Like if you want to have a chat with Patrick, let's say, and you're planning the next, you need to have some language to tell them what you're intuitively feeling.
Yeah.
But most of this is intuition, right? But the other part I want to ask you about this intuition and how taking on a certain task work as a business owner, you mentioned this too, everything also seems very important to do, right? Like if it's your idea, it's like, it must be done.
Yes.
It must be done. Like I came up with the idea, so it must be done. It must be a good idea if it came to me, right? How do you kind of, the question is, have you become better at saying no to yourself or to other things, or just declining opportunities in general that come from yourself or from the outside world? Do you refuse certain things more often than you take on? How do you think about saying no in general?
I find saying no hard. You know, there's lots of things I probably should say no to, because, you know, we are such a small team, and we're talking about prioritizing tasks. There's other stuff I should probably do, but I just believe, because we're a small business and we are trying to really increase our brand awareness and put the brand out there, that saying yes to most things, it leads to different opportunities. And I just think I'm interested to see where it goes. So we don't say no a lot, really, at the moment, unless really there's someone who can't do it, or we are really busy on a task, or we don't have the cash, you know, for that particular investment. But so we are more of a yes company in terms of, I'm a yes person. I find it hard to say no, because I always then get FOMO of like, oh, what if I've lost out? What if, you know, kind of, what if I was going to meet some perfect person in this event? Or I find it really difficult to say no.
And logistically though, there's a certain amount of things you can say yes to though, right? Your time is limited. Yes, you can work 24 hours, but you won't have a brain if you don't sleep for a few days. Or just team-wise, the amount of resources you have at your hand, or the amount of money that you have at hand. Yeah. At some point, there's a limit to how much you can take on.
Absolutely, right. You know, and you have to, I think, take everything, really has to kind of go back to your overall business goals, right, and your strategy. And is interesting. One thing just does spring to mind. I was asked to be on a radio show on Friday. I didn't say no to it because I say yes to everything, but they wanted to talk to us about, you know, tea being healthy, which is fine, like tea is healthy, and just kind of, you know, all the health benefits and kind of the ingredients and how healthy that is. And, you know, I thought about it for a long time, and something was kind of niggling away at me, thinking, you know, is this really in line with the brand story? Is this the message we want to be sending out? You know, we're not some medicinal tea company. We're not all about, yes, we have healthy tea, but how do I change this narrative and change the slant on the story to be more fitting with our mission and what we're trying to be known for and achieve? So I had to kind of say no no to some of the questions and ask if it could be kind of pushed in a different direction. Could we focus on kind of what the brand is about? Because I also don't want to give people advice on products or, you know, certain claims on certain herbs and stuff, which I'm not an expert about. So I guess, you know, that comes from the maturity of the business. Whereas before I would want to say yes to everything because you don't want to miss out on an opportunity. But now we have this clear strategy, this clear goal for the business. So it has to fit to that, you know. And we've gone through that whole brand story, as I mentioned before, and looked at things, you know, which are on brand, what we want to upcycle, what we want to play down a little bit, because sometimes we get taken in different directions by journalists or customers and requests and things which are not necessarily fitting with the mission that we're on. So we are getting a bit better at, you know, standing our ground and be like, no, this is not something we want to focus on. We want to be more focused here. But I think it all comes with the maturity of the business, right? Because when you start, I guess you're happy to go in any direction as long as people want to talk about you, you know? Whereas when you're kind of, you know, a bit further into it, you can kind of control that narrative and really decide what works for your business and what doesn't.
So it's gone from a yes to a yes, but.
Yes, but yes. We're not a no.
You're not a no. I've graduated to no yet.
No, we're not there yet. Ask me in another year's time. Maybe we would have said yes, a few no's. But now we're a very yes, and now we're a yes, but.
I like that. I love that. Switching gears again, how do you, personally as a business owner, improve yourself in a way that you're more useful to your business? And useful can mean anything that you want it to mean, but your contribution to the business has to improve day by day. You have to be more valuable to your own business, otherwise the business doesn't want you anymore, right? If you're not bringing that. So what do you do to kind of improve yourself so that you are more useful to the business?
Well, I love learning. So I think it's really important, you know, to learn new skills constantly. Even, flying. My husband was calling me the biggest nerd, actually, because even flying back to the UK the other week, I think the whole 7 hours I did LinkedIn courses all the time on how to create a happier work environment and, you know, all of these different stuff. But I loved it. It was kind of, you know, the kids were all happy with the computer games, and there I was thinking, I can't work, I don't have Wi-Fi, so what could I do? But I love, you know, kind of exploring different ways of improving, challenging myself. Could I do things better? Do I need to train or upskill in certain areas? So yeah, I don't believe I have all the answers. I don't believe that my way is the best way. And I think that's how I help the business, because I constantly want to learn and improve myself and make things better for everyone in the organization and the company as a whole.
Yeah, and that mastermind group that you're part of kind of helps with that too, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just by osmosis, maybe. Even, right?
And my growth group, they're. I'll have to introduce you to them. They're an amazing group of people, honestly, really good. Yeah,
we've already met Melissa. If you're watching this, hi Melissa.
Yes.
Okay, switching gears. This is kind of a tough question for me to ask not because it's a tough answer, but it's hard to phrase this, but I'm really going much deeper than the other questions with this. Core beliefs. We all have a certain set of programmed core beliefs, and I also think that this software up here keeps regularly getting updated as well. So over time we find some core beliefs to shift or to change completely. I wanted to know if that holds true for you, and it doesn't have to be for business, but has there been a certain core belief the last 5, 10, 2 years that has changed for you, that has changed the way you regularly do your business? And I'll give you an example while you think of something, maybe buy you some time. I was not a very competitive person 5 years ago. So I'd go and play sports. I love playing. I love playing board games. I love playing sports, but I never care if I won or not. And I'd play for the joy of playing. And come back home and I'd, talk to Alina. I was like, oh, I had a good game. She's like, oh, you won. I said, no, I didn't say that. I said I had fun. And then we'd play board games and she'd always win. And she'd be like, haha, loser. And I was like, no, I had fun. That's completely changed for me. And I've become super competitive and I love winning. Maybe to the extent that I have less joy in some of the things I do. But has there been something like a core belief or a mindset shift that's happened for you in the last 2, 5, 10 years that you can point to that's change the way you look at day-to-day business or long-term in the business?
I think I'm always 100% in everything that I do, and I don't think that will ever change. That's kind of in my DNA and in my core. That's just who I am. If I commit to something, I'm 100% in. But I think what I would used to do is kind of go 100 miles an hour, everything. I'm a completer finisher by nature. Everything has to be finished and dotted and moved on. And I think, now I try, and it doesn't always have to be completed and finished, straight away. And sometimes it's good not to complete things because, it could take a completely different direction if you just let things be for a little time and reflect and think about things. So I think for me, I try to not be this kind of in such a rush all the time. I think one of my previous mentors told me that haste can lead to waste. And he said that to me purposely because back then my 22-year-old self was so quick. I had to make decisions. Everything was, as we described earlier, so important. And I was so impatient and I just wanted to get on and I wanted to kind of, take the world by storm or 100 miles per hour. And that's definitely changed, I think. I'm happy to stew on things a little bit more. And I think sometimes, that's important to do it. You shouldn't jump into things so quickly. It's okay to allow yourself breathing space. It's okay to allow yourself time to think. You don't have to have the answer as soon as the question's asked. And that's definitely something I've learned and something that's really working out better for me than just going at things so quickly because I want to get it off my table and complete it and then move on to the next task. It's okay to have a few loose ends and unfinished. And that's definitely something, I'm happy to be in that environment now, whereas before I would have the hot sweats. I would want to finish it, move on, close it all off. So that's
Would you have trouble
changed.
Sleeping without
Absolutely.
finishing a task?
Yeah, it'd be my notepad on my bed and even writing it on my notepad. I would still be thinking about it. So then I'd leave myself some notes in my calendar of things to do to help that task. But now I sleep easily at night, and I think that definitely has taken me time to get to, because I would worry and I would want to, I think people thought I wasn't good at what I was doing if I couldn't get it to a resolution quickly. But now it's okay to take my time and I'm content with that.
And are you finding comfort in that too?
Yeah.
Right now?
Absolutely, kind of. It's, if it's the weekend, for example, it's okay not to make a decision. Monday will come around soon enough and you can make a decision there. I think, slowing down sometimes is really good for the mind, your body, your soul, and it'll help you make informed business decisions. I think if you make decisions just because you feel like a decision needs to be made instead of because it's the right thing for you to do, you can make some wrong decisions by doing it in haste.
I do want Alina to listen to this part too, because she does have a lot of your qualities, like the completer finisher.
Yeah.
She wants to get it done, whether it's on the weekend, whether it's in the evening. She'll stay up late.
Yeah.
She still lives a very beautiful life in terms of outside of work too. Yeah. But at the same time, she won't go to bed until, she does what she said she would do. And also with decisions. So I started doing this thing like, let's sleep on it because of my love for naps and sleep in general. Started introducing we're not going to talk about this until we have a good night's rest.
Yeah. We
get our 8 hours. When we're fresh in the morning, let's pick this up again. And she's starting to see the value in this.
What's the worst that could happen? I always try and ask myself, for example, if I don't make a decision, if I don't make that phone call, if I don't reply to that email, what is the worst that's going to happen?
Yeah.
And if nothing, it's fine, But I think you have to challenge yourself to do that a few times to realize it's all fine. You can pick it up, the next day when you really know what you want to do.
Absolutely.
And once you realize that a few times, I think you do back yourself and give yourself a bit of space to make those decisions and take the time you need to make those decisions, because you're so right. How I think about something sometimes in the heat of the moment, and then you go to sleep and you reflect on it, you have such a different perspective the next day. And that's what you want to channel, those really thought through decisions. So I think it's really important to give yourself a bit of space and be kind to yourself. That's being kind to yourself, respecting yourself enough to give yourself the time you need to process something. Yeah,
it ties back to something I was asking earlier about saying no too, right? Like if you're in a crunch of a decision, you got to make that decision now. I find myself dodging bullets because I slept on it. And I woke up and I said, no, that's not a discussion we need to have at all.
Yeah.
Like the question was wrong.
Yeah.
Right?
And you wouldn't have realized that if you'd gone so far into it
Yeah.
before, but you've come out of your sleep and you're like, no, this is really,
Yeah.
you know, not necessary. We don't
Yeah.
move on.
Yeah, we just like it was a wrong thing to even be talking about. I'm mindful of time at the studio as well, so I have a few different questions before we start wrapping up too. I want to talk about investing in general, right? As business owners, yes, we are earning income from our business, but there's always a need for having multiple income sources. And I know you might think about this kind of stuff as well, having grown up with a single mother, and like how you guys talked about money and your work ethic and preparing for worst case scenario. So and this is again, selfish question, right? Like, and it's just not asking for investment advice on where I should put my money in, but how do you go about thinking that? And if you're educating your children, so like if you're trying to impart that too, because I ask because it's not very commonly discussed, especially in Dubai kids, we don't talk about this stuff. We didn't grow up talking about the certain set of kids. How do you think about investments outside of the business, the ones that you don't fully have to work on? How do you qualify them? How do you make a plan for them? Where are you generally going with that in your life?
So I think, working for Tata Steel for 15 years ingrained in me to have a good pension and to save to your pension. I think when it comes to investments, I'm a bit risk adverse in that respect, really. So I do more sensible, we pay into our pension in the UK to make sure that we have a pension. I always think property is a great investment. I know it fluctuates, but it's generally a good place to put your money. And that's what my husband and I really focus on, making sure that we have our pension and that we have some property that we can fall back on. Because I think you always need a backup plan. You need... obviously we have the business and our jobs here, but it's good for you to have something either back home where that's where you're going to finally end up, so that's kind of what we do. I think I'd love to learn more about sort of Bitcoin and all of that, but it absolutely terrifies me. And I feel, it's something I'm not, informed about to kind of do any of those more risky types of investments. So I'm a bit old school when it comes to it. A simple pension that you will kind of, you'll see your pot growing over the years. I've invested in my pension since I was 20. So that's something both my husband and I do. And then just having the stability, having some property back at home. Bit boring, sorry.
No, it's great because Warren Buffett says this, right? Like, I wouldn't put my money into anything I don't understand.
Yeah, and I think that's important. Yeah.
And on the other side, so I get opportunities, let's say buying a laundromat. Be a great business because you always need to get laundry done.
You do.
So I have the same background as you, as like work on the safe and tested, like real estate. Always there's a cycle to it, but it's just recognize safer. The cycles. It's safer. It's physically you can touch it. It's there. And then once in a while you hear about stuff that is out of the blue. So Bitcoin is an example, and so is a laundromat, or buying a hair cutting salon. Do you ever think about those, like putting your money in something in a business, somebody else's business that somebody else runs?
I would love to, particularly seeing how rewarding Patrick finds it and how much he gets out of it, because obviously he has his business that's much more mature with a lot more employees, and having that kind of interaction in a startup where you don't get the sleepless nights, but you're part of the journey and it's exciting, and you're building a brand and you're building a product. I would love to do that. I think when we get to the stage with Brew Society where I am more financially comfortable and I can look to invest money in other businesses instead of back in mine, I would absolutely love to do that. I would love to even have other businesses. I think I get so excited by that whole startup and just the creativeness of it and bringing something to life. Absolutely. So whether I start it myself or start it, and support others on their journey, I would love to keep going in this kind of arena because I get so much out of it.
Yeah, I think that's one of my long-term goals, is to learn enough about doing business, not by talking about it, by doing it.
Yeah.
So that in the future generation has someone to help them out on their my first business journeys. I do have a rapid fire round that I want to do with you.
Oh, okay. No pressure.
A lot of pressure. That's the hot seat you're sitting on. No, it's going to be super fun. You up for it?
Go for it.
Okay, first one. Ice cream or gelato?
Ice cream.
All right, that was fast. Okay, this one maybe not as fast. Exciting flexibility that leads to volatile results, or boring consistency that leads to sure results.
Excited flexibility.
Good. There's no risk there. Spa day or shopping?
Ooh, shopping.
Yeah? 100%?
100%.
Wow. Okay. If you weren't living in Dubai or London or Wales, where would you be?
Canada.
Yeah?
Nova Scotia. Halifax. Love it.
Oh my God. Okay. Beautiful. Beautiful.
It's so beautiful.
Favorite TV show of all time? Could be Netflix, could not be, but not released this year.
Oh, it'll definitely have to be something with Nicolas Cage in it. I'm such a Nicolas Cage fan. Con Air, maybe? That's my guilty pleasure.
I'm going to put that on my... So I asked this question because I'm building up a library of all the things that I have to watch now. Like,
yeah.
Why waste time deciding? I already like how you guys speak. So I'm like, I would love the movies that you watch. The one book every business owner should read.
Oh, gosh.
And it doesn't have to be a business book in general. It could be fiction too, but you think...
So many. Do you know the one I've read most recently, which I thoroughly enjoyed from cover to cover, is Jo Malone's biography about kind of how she set up Jo Malone. I just found it kind of so interesting. I see so many similarities in her background growing up, kind of, and how she grew up and how she bootstrapped it. And obviously now it's, she sold it to Estee Lauder, but just watching her whole journey, and a lot of her personal life was in there too, and the challenges of having a child and business. And I just find it really interesting. And it's such a easy, once you start reading, you can't put it down, but it's one I've just finished recently. Yeah.
Do you know what's the title of the book? Or we can look it up.
It's Jo
afterwards.
Malone, her biography. Oh, I was just thinking of a new product there when I was thinking, I can't remember the title. So am I the only person that does that? Like, I download so many books on my Kindle, and I always forget the title. I know who writes it and what the book's about, but then I forget the specific title.
No, that's fine. I do the same thing. I do something worse. I buy more books than I can ever read. Or like out of every 10 purchases of books, I probably read cover to cover, maybe 3 or 4. The other 6, I don't even start 2 of them, and the remaining 4, I read the first chapter or 3 chapters, and I'm like, I don't want to read this.
See, I'm the completer
finisher. You're the completer finisher. No, I can't get through it. If I can't get through it, I have walked out of movies in theaters.
I've never done that in my life. I've sat there completely until it's finished.
No, I can't. I don't have.
Maybe one day I'll have to
patience.
do that. Really?
Yeah. Yeah, because I just think there's so many in the books in the world.
Yeah.
Why would I spend another day reading something that I'm not really enjoying, and I feel like I'm pushing myself through it?
Yeah.
There's one that I picked up that was highly recommended by one of my favorite personalities on the internet. And usually when you follow somebody, very if you follow Jo Malone, everything she recommends you'd want to read, right? If she has... So I picked up this book, and I'm like 20% away. I'm like, it's not doing it for me.
Then,
so I have to put it away.
Yeah.
It's going in the graveyard of unread books. My last question. Actually, 2 questions. If you were to stop working in the tea industry, what would you be doing?
Oh, that's a good question. Do you know, on Friday I told you I did a radio show. I absolutely loved it. Just being in the studio, kind of that on-air, off-air kind of, So yeah, I'd be a radio DJ. There we go.
What? Nice. I like that.
So I knew, I loved it. It's the first time I've ever been. I've done radio before, but over the phone, kind of COVID times, you couldn't go in the studio. But I just loved that atmosphere and kind of, the excitement when the red light comes on and, you have to speak and then it goes off. And I don't know, I just loved it. I've never done anything like it before. So if I'm not selling tea, if there's any radio stations out there who need a Welsh host, here I am. Yeah,
she's right here. This whole 2 hours was an interview process right there. And it has to be live.
Live, yes, with the red light.
Better have the red light. Okay, last question. Laura, you want to build a big, giant global company?
Yeah, I want Brew Society.
Or are you building a small company?
I would like to build a household brand. I would like to build a brand that people recognize, that people can buy in every country, I want to take Brew Society global, and we're making inroads to that right now. We are going to start supplying Saudi very shortly. We signed a contract several months ago, so that's really exciting. And then we will be making a beeline for Kuwait and Qatar. And yeah, I'm passionate about this brand. I want it to be accessible to everybody, so I want this brand to be in as many different outlets as possible.
Well, it will. Thank you so much for coming on. There's so many notes that I've taken, as you can see, of things that I need to work on and meditate on and think about. I think you have some really good perspectives for both Alina and I, and for people that are listening as well. Just about getting through the highs and the lows, as you mentioned, like equating them out. Even if you're just working on it, it's important to talk about it. How you deal with disasters, floods in this case. And just investing in yourself by surrounding yourself with the right people. And I think you're on a really great journey.
Thank you.
I'll continue following it. There's a lot more that we can talk about the next time we meet, as you accomplish some of the goals that you just mentioned right now, as well for yourself. But I wanted to ask you one last thing.
Sure.
If there's a message for the people in general, let's say you have a billboard on Sheikh Zayed Road.
Yeah.
What would you want to say to people? And it doesn't have to say buy more brew tea.
Well, I was thinking of buy more.
Non-commercial message. What would you say?
Be kind to yourself. I think that's really important. I think whether you're setting up a business, have an idea, be kind to yourself, because you don't want to put too many tough pressures on yourself. Life is worth living, and you want to enjoy what you do. So, be kind to yourself.
Amazing. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've loved every second.
Oh, makes my heart melt. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Right.